My name is Caleb from Group UG16. Today I'll be reviewing the Systems Requirements Specification document. For the SRS document, our team has identified 13 system requirements to go over in detail. We've also provided 6 use cases that help lay out the functionality of our program. Each of the requirements has been written to include a sufficient and consistent level of detail, including a description in the rationale behind the requirement. They also all include a criterion of acceptance to provide a means of designing and testing. All but one of the requirements were sourced from the client meetings, with the other being sourced from one of our regular team meetings. It was decided to include this requirement of adding the ability to filter the challenge list to help users find challenges they would be more comfortable attempting. We also included the priority of each requirement. However, we did not include a description of how we prioritized them, which we can add to the final version. Each of the provided requirements were specific and cannot be broken down into multiple different requirements. Each of our use cases provide a description of the scenario at hand as well as a description of any relevant personnel. We then lay out the preconditions that must be met and then the basic flow of how we would expect the scenario to go down. We've also listed any errors or alternate flows that may occur. Finally, we list the post conditions if the use case runs successfully. We have included a diagram on how our system should work internally. However, we have not internally cross-referenced any specific requirements. Each of the requirements that we have listed are unique from the rest. They have all been written in clear, concise, and unambiguous language. Some grammatical errors have been identified and will be fixed before the final submission. The requirements can be verified upon completion through either testing, demonstrating, reviewing, or analyzing. All of the requirements listed are within the scope of this project, with the exception of the ability to filter the challenge list. This is a requirement that the team decided would be a good inclusion without adding any unnecessary complications. Other than the exclusion of a reason behind the prioritization of the requirements, no information is absent. There are no known constraints other than time at this point in the project, but all requirements can be implemented in this timeframe. Each of the listed requirements have been uniquely and correctly identified. Each of the use cases can be traced back to a requirement, with the exception of the private challenge submission. Initially, it was thought that a requirement was that the admin users could create private challenges. This has since been deemed out of scope for this project. This particular use case must have gone overlooked upon submission. There have been no requirement dependencies mentioned. When writing the requirements, the assumption was that any previous dependencies had been met. For example, it is assumed that the test cases would have been verified before being applied as test cases. All of the requirements provided are actual requirements that will need verification upon completion, although some of the requirement descriptions do go off some information about a solution. No time-critical functions have been identified. The only requirement that we have listed with any kind of standard to follow is requirement number 5, which is load time. As stated within the requirement, we need to minimize page loading times or display a load bar if the expected time exceeds 300 milliseconds. Thank you for watching my review.